Hello, wildlings. I'm your Creepsmith, and you found my Fear Forge. Lucky you. Welcome back, wildlings. Today's Canuckian creepy classic is Rap Rat by CanadianCowboy. Ever heard of Nightmare? Like a lot of other games in the 90s, it came with a VHS tape which you timed with your play. The character on the video would give you instructions on what to do while you played the game in real time. Now, being a scaredy cat, I refused to play it. When my mom bought it for us, my brother was disappointed about not being able to play it. But my mom had a solution. She brought out Rap Rat. This was a cheap, dingy little thing which catered to kids my age, and you went around the board collecting cheese, and the first player to reach the end would win. It seemed simple enough. It reminded us of Mousetrap, which we didn't have, and there were no objections. We popped the movie into the VHS and set up the board. The first part of the video was just a simple explanation of the rules as well as instructions on how the game worked. Then, Rap Rat came onto the TV. He was not what any of us had been expecting. My little brother, who was only 3 at the time, immediately left the room crying. The rat didn't even look like a rat. Its ears were far too big. It had a mouth with 2 teeth, the inside of which almost looked swollen. The most striking part about the thing, though, was its eyes. They were huge, glassy, fish-like. I asked, and then bothered, and then begged my mother to turn it off. And Rap Rat suddenly turned to the screen and shouted, loudly, screaming and wailing, saying, "Wait your turn!" in a demonic, low-pitched voice that was not at all like his normal, obnoxious, nasally voice. In the background, we could hear the narrator saying, "He's Rap Rat. He's the boss," over and over again in an overly serious tone. The video was, well, tough to describe. Images crossed the screen in quick succession, overcut with Rap Rat's expressionless eyes. The images were of things I was afraid of at the time. A person looking over a high balcony, a hornet slowly stinging someone's eyes, an extreme close-up of a tarantula, a pit full of writhing cobras, a bloodied syringe filled with green fluid. We immediately turned the video off, and I ran out of the room, screaming, slamming the door behind me. It took Mom 20 minutes to convince me that the video was gone, that I would never, ever see it again. I had nightmares all week about that game. That wasn't the last time that I saw Rap Rat. Years later, when my girlfriend and I were preparing to move in together, I was clearing out the closet of my room in my parents' house and found it again, with the same VHS and the same board game inside. It was almost perfectly intact, save for a thick layer of cobwebs and dust bunnies. This was strange, though. Hadn't my mother gotten rid of it? And what was it doing in my room? I let out a bit of a gasp when I found it, and my girlfriend came into the room asking what the matter was. Breathing harshly, I said, "Rap Rat." She laughed a bit and asked if I was joking. Shook my head, explained that I wasn't. She didn't believe me. Turns out nobody did. I decided that the only way to prove it to her was to show her the video. I borrowed my neighbor's VHS and played the video for her. However, the images, it seemed, had changed. I saw a clown, its nose bursting and spraying blood onto the screen. I saw a woman alone in a dark room. I saw a man being forced to pick up white-hot metal and hold it in his outstretched hand, turning his hand into a leathery mess. The scratching that I'd heard as a child continued, picking up, getting louder and louder, and then Rap Rat itself showed up and began twisting and convulsing, its arms thrusting this way and that. But the costume or the puppet wasn't what it had been anymore. The felt was real fur now, and its face wasn't plastic, but instead it was a bristle of thorns and teeth. The eyes turned inward and suddenly popped out again. And Rap Rat's huge fish eyes were inside out, but staring right at me, watching my every move, my every expression. It grinned widely and gestured at my girlfriend and I with a single, outstretched, inhuman hand. I could hear the faint scratching at the door. Then the TV went blank and the static started up. But then the scratching got louder. Then it wasn't scratching anymore. It was little thumps. The thumping of tiny feet on wood. My girlfriend grabbed me in fear and my senses kicked back in. Before anything else happened, I stopped the video, ejected it, and unplugged the VHS. And the scratching simply stopped. When I looked out the living room window, there was nothing there. The police showed up soon after, warning us that a neighbor had seen a suspicious figure outside our door and had called out of concern. My girlfriend and I simply couldn't explain what had happened, and we had to tell the police officer that it was us. I was furious, angry at myself that a child's game was terrifying me. I went to pick up the tape, but the VHS burned my hand. It felt like I had touched a Bunsen burner on the highest setting. We had to get the oven mitts from the kitchen in order to take it out, but even then it was scorching hot. I brought it outside, tossed it down on the sidewalk, and crushed it with my winter boots. Afterwards, my girlfriend and I had bad dreams every night. We could both wake up in the middle of the night and describe eerily similar images that we saw in our sleep. The scratching, of course, would always be there when the lights were off and the rooms were black, save for the moonlight coming through the window. Now, though, it would happen every time I went near the front door, and every time we said Rap Rat's name. It sounded as if something very small was trying to drag something across the ground outside the door, as if it were pacing, waiting. I'd simply wait myself with the covers pulled up to my neck until I succumbed to exhaustion. At this point, I was determined to sue the company for damages, and the first thing I did was call my mother and ask us where she'd gotten the game. She didn't remember, she said. I found a merchant who sold versions of Rap Rat and asked how I could get in touch with the company. He sent me this email. I don't know about the game, but I know it was created by the same people who created Nightmare. This company is called A Couple of Cowboys. Try them. I did a bit more research and discovered that the company had become defunct in 1994, only 2 years after they created the Rap Rat game. I discovered why soon after. In 1992, the year of the game's development, A Couple of Cowboys commissioned a manufacturing company in Haiti to create the doll portrayed in the game. The company who created the puppet ran a sweatshop where they forced women and children to produce various components of the puppet, including the felt and the plastic of the doll. One day, while working, a young Haitian girl got her arm caught in the industrial sewing machine. The spring loader, unable to handle the weight on the machine, came loose and struck the child in the neck, killing her almost instantly. A few days after the funeral, the mother of the child came to the factory demanding to see the owner, who denied that he had anything to do with her daughter's death. In a fit of rage, the mother said that the blood of the innocent would seep into every crevice of the doll, every component with which it was created, and that all who touched it would die. She claimed to have summoned a fear demon and screamed at the top of her lungs, "Apparat will curse you." The owner simply laughed and told his corporate bosses about Apparat. They spread the joke from person to person, and the game was renamed Rap Rat. This was a loose anagram of Apparat. Each recitation of the name brought with it a greater and greater curse. Only 2 years after Rap Rat was created, the company was shut down, and the owners were hired on by Mattel. There were various stories of workers begging for days off, skipping work for weeks and weeks, finding the puppet in strange places. There were also stories of suicides, grim, violent deaths in which the workers would stab their hands through and set themselves on fire, writing, "I am fear," on the nearest surfaces in their own blood. Nobody knows where the Rap Rat doll went after the original creators disappeared. Some say that the last things the victims saw before going insane were large, sunken, fish-like eyes. So a few words of warning. Firstly, never, ever say the name Apparat out loud. Saying a demon's name out loud is an invitation to them. A calling, if you will. If you've already done this, it can't be undone. Don't try to speak to or contact the spirit Apparat. And lastly, avoid being awake between 3:30 and 4 a.m. This is when Rap Rat is the most likely to try to scare you. So what happened to me? Well, the VHS is back. I thought I had stomped it to bits, smashed it to Kingdom Come, but it's back, in mint condition. I found it in my sock drawer yesterday. But this time I was ready. A whole bunch of people have been contacting me, trying to get the tape or some sort of video from the board game. I'm sorry, but my answer to you is that it's just too dangerous. If I distributed it, if I did that, I could very well drive someone insane, scare them to death. The video, the game, Rap Rat itself, they all seem to have some sort of strange power. Rap Rat follows me everywhere I go. I see little shadows in the corner of my eye. I hear sounds coming down the hallway when I know I'm the only one home. If this thing is there, it'll let you know, but it won't ever let you see it until it's too late, of course. A lot of people have been watching the normal video from the normal board game, and that's the thing. Rap Rat can be normal, but it'll trick you into thinking it's just a puppet, and then it'll stalk you day and night. Thanks for listening, wildlings. Stay scary and make the most of your nights.